Hello everyone, my name's Tony. In today's video we'll be checking out exactly how I built this 3-gallon Blue Dream shrimp tank right behind me, and at the end of the video we'll have a closer look inside. Let's get started. So we're going to use black lava stone for the hardscape, and I've got a few of the bigger, uglier pieces here. We're just going to smash them up with this hammer, just so we can use them for details. And the reason why I chose lava rock was because it's light and it's porous, so the plants we picked, mosses and the Bucephalandra, will be able to grip to the surface fairly easily. It was a lot harder than expected to smash up, honestly, but there we are, that should be enough. For my background, I cut a piece the size of diffuser plastic out of an old LCD monitor. I wasn't too sure how I was going to attach it, but it turns out it just stays there by itself. Now the tank I got from boostplant.com is a UNS 3N, holds 3 gallons of water, and the light fixture is an ONF Flat Nano Stand, full spectrum LED light. So what I'm going to do first is build up a little bit of height in the back with some clear gravel. What I'm using is some leftover Seachem fluorite, which is basically a porous clay, which is good for holding in the nutrients and will make a nice place for beneficial bacteria to grow. I then used an old paintbrush just to level it out and make a nice even slope. For the main substrate layer, we'll just be using fine natural sand. The small granule size will also help with a sense of scale at the end. And because we'll be attaching most of the plants to the rocks, there's really no need for any aqua soil in the front, but we will add some in the back because we will be planting a few stem plants. Building up a slope in the back also gives depth to our tank. Well, it looks like we have a little visitor. Maybe he'll be a good boy for us. I don't think so. We're going to have to take a little interval. Alright, so let's try this again. So I don't really have a plan of action going in, we're just going to see where the hardscape materials take us. While placing the lava rock, I made sure that the good sides were facing forward. If you're enjoying the video so far, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a like, and also click that bell icon if you want to be notified for any future videos. I played around with the hardscape quite a bit, just trying to make a solid structure. I didn't want to use any glue on this. I just knew I wanted to leave a little exit point between the rocks, a little pathway. If you can imagine shrinking yourself down to that size, you could just walk through a little gap right there. That's what I was going for. I decided to add Spiderwood too, so it looked like roots coming down between the cracks, and the 3 pieces I got were really beautiful, but a lot of the pieces did not fit in the hardscape, so I had to cut them off, and we are going to reattach them in a better position shortly. I then added some of the smaller crushed up pieces of lava stone that we broke with the hammer earlier in the video, just for some details. So I'm going to be using Gorilla Glue gel to reattach these Spiderwood pieces, and it's completely aquarium safe. It's cyanoacrylate based adhesive, and yeah, that's the wrong top. Let's try again. Actually, I want the green piece. So it reacts to moisture, so these little pieces of wood here have actually been soaking in water for a while, so that should help the curing process. So you don't need much, just a little dab of glue. You don't want to go overboard. The downfall of this type of glue is it does dry white, which is a little bit of an eyesore, so if you can get a more professional aquarium glue that dries clear, that's a much better option, honestly. So just holding the wood in place for a few seconds should be enough at this point. Yeah, it looks fine. So I'm just going to continue and do the rest the same way. It's important that I'm adding these little bits of spiderwood back, because details make all the difference if you're going for a natural looking design. If I had a larger selection of wood, I could have totally avoided this part, but you just got to do the best with what you've got. I actually find it more fun this way anyway, because you can be more creative. So I'm just going to use these last few pieces down the bottom here, just so it looks like the roots have grown down in between the rock formations. Now that we've finished adding the spiderwood back in, I'm just going to clean up the front a little bit and add a few more extra details with this smashed up lava stone. After inspecting the hardscape for a while, I felt like it was just missing something, so I added this piece of driftwood that I found down by the river a while back, and it actually just fit perfectly on top. Now I don't know about everyone else, but to me it looks a little bit like a dragon or some sort of guardian. Let me know in the comments what you think it looks like up there. So I'm just adding a few bits of lava stone in the back here to fill in the gaps. I actually did leave about an inch in the back behind the hardscape because I want to plant some stem plants to grow up behind there. So I'm just filling in the gaps here so nothing leaks forward, because I'm going to actually add some aqua soil behind there. So I thought I'd be clever and use a funnel, and I poured it in too fast and it got stuck, but we eventually got it all in there. There it is. And to make planting a little easier, I'm actually going to add some sand back over the top of the aqua soil. So now the hardscape is finally complete, we can get on to planting. If you're enjoying this video so far, remember to hit like and subscribe. Let's continue with this piece of wood here. So you may be wondering why we've taken this wood back out that we just glued in there. Well, we're actually going to attach moss to it, so let's see how that goes. What we're going to be using is weeping moss, which hangs down instead of growing up, so it gives a really cool effect like vines. So I'm just going to sit that there for now, because what we need to do first is give this a little spray down, which will help the moss stick to it while we stick the moss to it. So I'm going to use this cool pair of extremely sharp spring-loaded scissors to cut this moss up into little pieces. But first let's take a little piece off, see what we're dealing with. Let's take a closer look at this moss. So it's not the softest feeling moss, it's a little bit stringy feeling. Let's try and get one strand out, see how it grows. So the branches on this piece look slightly irregular. Small tiny leaves you can't really see, but it is quite nice. So we're just going to cut this up real small then and attach it to this wood, and hopefully it'll grow out real well and hang down just the same way in a few months' time. So my plan is just to roll the moss up into a nice little ball, give it a snip and then another snip. I'll just make a nice little pile over here. I'll just do this a few more times and we should be alright. It's actually quite satisfying snipping through the moss ball here. Okay, so that should be enough moss for now. See how far that gets us. So first of all I'm going to add some moss up here, then I'm going to add some all the way down here. I'm going to leave the bottoms bare because I want it to hang down in that area, and I'm going to make a point to cover these joins where we glued the extra roots on. And I'm also going to glue some on these little skinny bits because I think that'll look cool. So I'm just going to use all-purpose thread to tie this moss to the wood. You can use fishing line if you have it. I don't actually fish, so I don't have any on hand. But I do have thread. I don't sew, but I do have thread. So let's use this. Well, we'll just get out a little piece ready for when we start to tie. So I'm just going to start at the top here, and a nice thin coat is all you need. You don't want to lay it on too thick because the moss underneath, it won't get any light and it'll probably just turn brown and die and cause excess nitrates in your tank, which you don't want. So let's start wrapping this moss onto the wood. So you basically just want to pin it down. Just tie down the main clumps to begin with, and then you can focus on getting the little stringy bits that stick out. And we're going to trim it at the end anyway, so any excess moss that's sticking out too far, we're just going to snip off. It is a little bit tricky and a little bit time consuming. It's actually got stuck here, so I'm just going to have to unwind it. Try your best, do it as neatly as possible, make sure you get all the moss down. You don't want any floating off when you put it in the water, so make sure it's tied down really well. So that should do for the first section, so let's tie it off. Make sure you get a good knot in there, because you don't want it coming unravelled underwater. As the moss grows, it will attach itself to the wood with little brown hairs called rhizoids. So soon, the string will be buried deep underneath the moss, and if it does come loose, it won't matter because the moss will be securely attached to the wood. We're just going to use the same technique and add a little more moss on this piece of wood. On either side, tie it up real good with a nice tight knot. And that should actually do it for this piece. For this second piece of wood, we're going to use a different technique to attach the moss. We're going to try gluing it to see if it's any better. Again, we'll be using this trusty Gorilla Glue gel, completely aquarium safe. There are other options out there, but this is what we have on hand. Give it a nice spray down so the moss sticks. We just have to prepare a little more moss again, so let's take some off this sheet here and ball it up. Give it a nice little snip. So I'm going to want to attach moss all over the main portions of this piece of wood, up and down these viney parts as well. I think it'll look cool. Cover all the joins. Pretty much the same idea, except I'm going to be gluing it this time. So I'm just going to apply a little dab directly onto the wood here. That's actually a little bigger than I wanted, but let's just go with it. Just squeeze this extra water out here, we don't need all that. Alright, so let's just lay it on, give it a little press down. It should stick fairly instantly. Already it seems a lot easier, just gluing and sticking, so let's keep going. Well, there are consequences of course, sticky fingers. Again, you don't have to lay it on too heavily. I may have put it on a little too thick here myself, but we'll use those little spring scissors and give it a nice trim at the end. Okay, so this is the final result. I have to say that was much easier than tying it. So I think for this final piece here, we're going to glue it again. And as you can see, we barely used any of this moss, just taking it from around the edge. So there should be plenty left for this and a little extra. So let's get to gluing. Alright, so that one's done. That was quick, wasn't it? So now that we've successfully attached moss to all three pieces of this wood, we just need to clean them up a little bit with these scissors here. I'm just going to snip off all the extra bits that are hanging. We just want it as close as possible to the wood, which will help give the moss more light exposure, which will help it grow and get established quicker. Now you don't need to take much off, just a few snips here and there, just the pieces that are sticking out noticeably, because you want to enjoy watching it growing itself. So I'm just going to repeat this process now with the other pieces of wood. We should be ready to move on. Everything is ready to go. All my wonderful plants from boostplant.com, check them out. Got his moss over here. Got a nice little tissue culture plant. We'll save that for later. Okay. First things first, let's give the tank a nice spray down, get everything nice and saturated. And the reason why I'm spraying it down right now is because, again, we're going to be using as glue and it helps things stick a little better. The first plant we'll be using is this nice little brownie blue Bucephalandra. I think I'm going to glue it and attach it to the bottom of the rocks down here. So I'm going to use the larger leafed Bucephalandras that I have in the foreground and the smaller leafed in the background, again to help with the sense of scale. And I apologise because I did lose a little tiny bit of footage there, I'm not sure why. So the second plant is a little red star, again Bucephalandra. And what I'm going to do with this is actually I'm going to snip the rhizome directly in half. And now we have two plants. Alright, so I'm going to attach this one directly to this lava stone hiding underneath here. So let's take it out. So let's see. I'm going to want to attach it something like this, laid across. So let's add a little bit of glue. Don't need much, just a little dab. And we'll just press that on gently, hold it down for a few seconds. Shouldn't take too long to attach. And just a quick little spray to speed up the curing process. And we'll tuck him back down under there. Alright, perfect. And we'll just do the same with the second piece we cut off. Attach it to this little rock here. There, he looks quite nice. A little spray. And we're going to put him in the opposite side. The next type of Bucephalandra is called Arrogant Blue. And again, we're going to attach it to a little piece of lava stone. Just make sure it's positioned nicely and hold it down. There we go, I really like the look of that one. The cool thing about attaching these to rocks is you can move them around and rearrange them if you need to. So we'll just pop him in here for now. So the next Bucephalandra we have is LAMANDAU Mini Purple. We have quite a few little rhizomes of this. So we'll choose a few nice places throughout the tank and glue it to the hardscape. We'll probably just pick a nice few spots here and there up on these rocks here. Before we go any further, we're going to add a spiderwood back in, because if we're going to be attaching more plants to the hardscape, we don't want it hidden behind these pieces of wood, so we really need to get these back in here so we know where to plant. So now as mossy wood's back in, it's looking quite cool already. So now we just have to look between the gaps and figure out which would be the best places to attach the rest of this booze. I think this spot right here is the perfect start. Okay, I think that looks great right there. This next piece I have is called Black Pearl. What a cool name. So where should we put this one? I'm actually going to apply the glue directly to the back of this piece. I'm going to stick it right under here. I think it's a really cool place for it. It's going to get some light from the back. If you look under there, it's like a little curve. You can imagine the pirates coming through, heading towards the beach. I still have those little pieces of LAMANDAU Mini Purple, so I'm just sticking them around in places that I think will look the best. So now that we're finished with the Bucephalandra, we have a mini Bolbitis, which is an aquatic fern. It also has rhizomes which we can attach directly to the hardscape. So I want to stick some in the back right here, in hopes that it will grow up and maybe even grow immersed in the future. While you're planting your aquarium, it's important to remember to keep spraying it. You don't want those plants to dry out while you're working. We'll also be using a little bit of Java moss for some variation. I'm just going to glue it to some of these bare looking surfaces. Java moss is cool, it grows up as opposed to the willow moss which grows down. I'm also adding some to the driftwood up top, which will help the transition between the two different surfaces look more natural. The final plant we'll be adding to the front of this hardscape is Hydrocotyle Tripartita. It's a tissue culture. Actually looks really fresh and nice in there. The roots are bound inside this gel stuff, so I've washed it off and we have a few nice clumps here. We're just going to separate them out and plant them sporadically around the bottom of the hardscape. So we don't need to bury it in the substrate, we'll just find some nice little gaps and tuck it in, and it will grow just fine. Okay everyone, we're almost finished. I think it's looking quite nice in there now. I think we've filled in all the necessary gaps. There's a nice balance between green and shadow. Yeah, I think we did a good job. I'm just going to use this crushed up lava stone, just a few more finishing touches. The plants covered some of the details we had, so we're just going to replace those, because you can never have too many details. I almost forgot, we didn't add as background. Let's just pop it on here. There we go. Now the filter we're going to be using is called a DYMAX Slim Flow, and it's really small, perfect for a nano tank of this size. I've actually decided to hang it on the side here, and I've left a nice gap between the hardscape. I'll probably add some custom media into it. Right now it's just got one of those default cartridge slots which don't work very well. So now it's time to fill it up. I'm just going to use this sandwich bag just to block the water flow so it doesn't disturb the sand too much as I fill it. And I am filling this with reverse osmosis water, remineralized to around 200 TDS with GHKH+, salty shrimp remineralizing powder. So I'm just going to release some air bubbles and make sure everything's seated correctly. So I've been staring at this a while and I've noticed I want to add some more moss on these pieces of wood down here, and over here too maybe. It's just looking a little bare, so let's drain it again. And I'm just going to glue some more moss directly onto the wood. So while we have the tank drained, I'm just going to glue a little bit of this extra weeping moss onto these bare pieces of wood that I noticed when the tank was full. So just a little dab of glue and just fill in a few of these bare looking gaps basically. There, I think it makes a big difference actually. I'm really glad I did that. Alright, so now that's done, let's get this filled back up. Alright, so now let's turn this filter on. Because I don't have any cycled media, I have to let this tank cycle by itself for a few weeks, which will let the plants grow in as well before I add any shrimp into this thing. I'm quite pleased with the way it's turned out and I'm really looking forward to watching it grow in. To help the cycling process, I'm going to be adding this starter bacteria from Microbe Lift. From time to time I'll also be adding the special blend water care. Pause the video if you want to read these directions here. And as you can see here, the water did get a little bit cloudy. That's just bacterial growth, and that will clear up in the next few days. During this time I added a pink ram's horn snail, also a blue one who's hiding right now. It took a few days for the water to clear up, but as you can see from these images right here, it did clear up pretty well. There's a little delay in adding these plant cuttings, but here they are. So we're just going to pop them in the back where we left that gap and added the aqua soil under the sand right there. Just going to plug them in with the tweezers real quick. And there we go. It looks great. Hopefully they grow tall and healthy for us. A few weeks later the tank was ready and the shrimp had finally arrived. Now there was a vote on whether to get blue or red shrimp, and Blue Dream Shrimp won on my Instagram page, so give me a follow if you want to be involved in anything like that in the future. After acclimating the shrimp for a few hours I added them in there, and we were finally finished. And you may have noticed I moved the tank too into my bathroom. It's been enjoyed much more by the rest of the family. So we've started with 11 Blue Dream neocaridina shrimp and a whole bunch of ram's horn snails. There's really no help in that. Once you introduce those snails, there's no turning back, so you really do have to love them, and thankfully I really love snails. And as you can see back there, they love each other too. Over the next few weeks, the plants and moss really took off well, thanks to the ONF Flat Nano Stand light. As you can see there, it's half drained during a water change, and the moss just looks incredible. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe, like, hit that bell icon and tell all your friends all about it. I'm going to leave you all now with a little compilation of some macro footage of what's going on inside that tank a few months later.